School of Law. I'd like to thank the Chicago Forum and the Organization of Latino in the Law School. It's a privilege. I want to send a shout out to todos los puertorriqueños y puertorriqueñas que se encuentran aquí. One footnote, or it is an important one. I am Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico is a nation. My first language is Spanish, not English. So if at some point I have a problem with some words or something, I will turn to Vicente and ask him if I made it or the words or if it is okay. Again, thank you very much. My initial remarks are going to be directed on something that was said previously. Why is the independence movement for many years didn't have the support in Puerto Rico that it had previously? In the first half of the 20th century, the Puerto Rican independence movement was a majority in the country. But that was against the interest of the United States to retain Puerto Rico as a colony. Not because they wanted to integrate Puerto Rico as a state of the Union, but because they needed Puerto Rico strategically and geopolitically for their military interests and economic interests. They wanted to protect their interests in the Panama Canal. They wanted to protect their interest in the Caribbean. They wanted to use Puerto Rico as a counterpart later on in the late 50s against the Cuban Revolution. So Puerto Rico was more like a chess piece in the map of geopolitical interest in the middle of the Cold War. That meant that the independence movement was an inconvenience for the United States interest. So persecution, incarceration, assassination against Puerto Rican independence supporters was the order of the day. Not only by the FBI, by the CIA, but also by the local government security officials. So that had an impact in the independence support for many years. The fact that in the last election, an independent supporter as a candidate for the governorship obtained second place with 31% is something unprecedented in the political history of our country. I think that that's what is on the table, because that meant that, and that means that the prejudices and the fear that the establishment and the colonial regime want to impact on people has been left behind. I think that's something important in the cultural electoral vision that Puerto Rico had in the past. So I'm here today to answer some questions, but bear in mind that when we talk about why the independence option hasn't had the support of other times, is because it was persecuted, assassinated, incarcerated. It wasn't an option. If you were an independentista, you were a paria in Puerto Rico. The fact that that is changing, it gives me hope, and I think to all the Puerto Ricans to exercise the right to self-determination and independence recognized by international law and international community is something that it's gotta give us hope. So that is my initial remarks, and I will answer the question the best way I can.
Thank you for being so brief. I know that can be hard sometimes.
It's very hard for me. When I know I'm competing for the attention of the public here gathered between what I'm saying and the delicious meal from Puerto Rico, so I'm not going to be so they get bored.
So just to introduce myself, my name is Vicente. I'm the co-chair of the Chicago Forum for Free Inquiry and Expression. Our mission is to promote discourse and dialogue. An important part of free speech and inquiry is diversity and bringing in ideas that people don't know about and bringing in those places to these kinds of spaces. So on that note, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. I know they're prepared, but we really want everybody to participate. So as soon as you have a question, raise your hand. We're not gonna get to everybody. Even if I have some, keep your hand raised so that we can start to involve people as soon as possible. And then I know that I'll promise to be as brief as possible, so, but we'll try to get to the questions. But we'll start with one that I think is very important. Can you describe to us a little bit about the problems with the current status? What is the relationship between Puerto Rico and the United States right now? How is that going?
It's a colonial relationship. I mean, the most important decisions that affect Puerto Rico are taken by Congress and by the executive branch and are interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court. But you cannot understand the policy of the United States towards Puerto Rico if we don't go to the 19th century to two policy ideas that were developed then. One, the Monroe Doctrine, that was in 1823, the idea that the United States believed that European countries cannot have a space or presence in our hemisphere. And any presence of European countries is going to be interpreted as a hostile action against the United States. The second one was in 1845, Manifest Destiny, the idea that the United States, men, white, and property owners were superior to others, and they had a divine burden, a mandate by God to civilize those savages. Then, the Spanish-American War. They needed to get rid of Spain, who had control over Cuba, over Puerto Rico, over the Philippines, and the United States, based on those ideas, established something for the first time in their history, which was that they had to decide if they were going to continue to be a democratic republic or if they're going to become an empire. When they acquired territories for the west of the United States, those territories were meant to be incorporated as states. But after the Spanish-American War, and I know that there are a lot of students here, they had to validate constitutionally colonialism. So the insular cases, as they are known, were cases decided by the U.S. Supreme Court, established legally that there are two kinds of territories. Incorporated territories, those are meant to become states. And the other one, unincorporated territories. Those are not meant to be states of the nation. Puerto Rico became an unincorporated territory, and the most famous case decided was Downs versus Bidwell, which said that Puerto Rico belongs to, but is not part of, the United States. From then on, Puerto Rico has been treated as a property, and we have had different forms of colonial governments. First, the military government, then Foraker Act in 900s, then the Jones Act in 1917, then in 1948, the Elected Governors Act, not alcaldes, a footnote. It took the United States half a century to allow Puerto Ricans to vote for the governor. The president appointed the governor of Puerto Rico unilaterally before 1948. Then Public Law 600, which allowed Puerto Ricans to draft a constitution, but had to be approved by Congress and could be amended by Congress. As law students know, a constitution is a product of the sovereignty of a people to organize as a society and a government, the rights of the people, and how their government will be organized. Our government, our constitution was pretty much drafted for the interests of Congress. And after that, promesa. Because if you are thinking that this is Asian history, promesa was approved in 2016. And promesa was approved the day after that the U.S. Supreme Court decided Sanchez-Valle. Sanchez-Valle is a case that the U.S. Supreme Court reiterated that Congress had plenary powers over Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico belongs to or is not part of the United States. And Congress can approve rules and regulations over the unincorporated territories. And PROMESA, what PROMESA says, and I know we're going to talk about this later on, but PROMESA said that a financial management oversight board has more power than the constitutional branches of Puerto Rico and elected officials. And it's this board, there are 7 bureaucrats that are nominated by the President of the United States, is approved by Congress and the Senate. And Puerto Ricans do not vote for them, but they have more power. And they have power over budget, over policy. So right now, this is very, very real in terms of, this is not what happened in 1898, this is not what happened in 900 or in the 50s. This is something that Puerto Ricans are suffering right now. The actions of the US government, because of a political regime that is colonial, is affecting economically, socially, governmentally, the lives of the Puerto Ricans. So this is what is going on right now, and I wanted to put it in historical context because it's something that we have been struggling against for 127 years now.
And I think kind of the opposite of this colonial relationship is this idea of becoming independent. So can you talk a little bit about what does that mean? What is independence and what does it mean for a colony to become independent?
Independence is the exercise of a people and the authority to decide its own destiny. Independence doesn't mean that we will be enemies of the United States. We can have treaties of cooperation and friendship with the United States. We can have treaties, economic treaties. But right now, Puerto Rico does not control its destiny. As I said earlier, PROMESA is an example. We cannot participate in the international debate. We don't have international representation. We cannot make treaties with other countries. We cannot make economic arrangements with other countries. We cannot participate in bilateral or multilateral treaties. So we are basically a part of what is going on in the rest of the world. It's undemocratic, and independence is a manifestation of a nation and a people to democratically exercise that authority to decide their own future and what they want to do. That doesn't mean it's un-American. On the contrary, I think it's an American idea. After all, the United States fought a war against England because they wanted to become an independent country. So it's an American idea. But I think that to understand independence in the context of Puerto Rico, we have to understand also what the narrative has been to try to make people reject the possibility of independence. And historically, the idea it has been that independence is hunger, is to fight with the United States, to become a communist country, to become undemocratic. I mean, the narrative, we're gonna be poor, the people will leave the island. That's what's going on right now. Under the US flag, people are leaving the country, people are going hungry, essential services of government have been dismantled, education has been dismantled. It is an undemocratic regime that is going on right now. So the narrative that was constructed against the independence option is precisely what the people is suffering right now. And I think that can explain why the support for an independent or an independent supported candidate for governor has grown. Because people have seen that it was all mythology, because it was meant to make the people reject the option of independence.
So clearly a big difference between American independence movement and Puerto Rico's independence movement is that Puerto Rico has this opportunity to join, at least in theory, to join the United States as a state. And that obviously comes with certain benefits and certain drawbacks, addressing the exact issues that you're talking about with the current relationship. So why is independence the solution? What kind of economic benefits does it bring that statehood can't?
Well, first of all, the option of statehood and the option of free association are not options of self-determination, are options of mutual determination. The United States has the last word if they want a Latin American, Caribbean country with its own language, its own culture, which is impoverished precisely by the colonial regime. If it's going to become the 51st state with more power than 26 states because of the composition in the House of Representatives. That option hasn't been on the table realistically in the United States. Free association option is an option that the United States can agree or not agree with the condition of the association, and either part can end the relationship at any point. Independence is a right of the people. It is in the UN Charter, it is in the treaties that the United States have signed, and independence is superior to statehood because statehood will have an economic impact far greater than independence. We will have to pay federal taxes, we will have to become part of the United States, not only politically, but also losing our identity, our nationality as a people, as a prerequisite to become a state. And also the idea that in the last plebiscite, in the last election there was a plebiscite. The options were statehood, free association, independence, and because it was a mock plebiscite, the Puerto Rican Independence Party asked the electorate to put their ballot in blank, not to vote for any of the options. If you add the votes that got independence, free association, and the blanks ballots, it's more than 50%. Statehood were rejected by the majority of the voters. So there is a democratic argument also. Independence would open borders of Puerto Rico to make treaties, economic agreements with other countries. We have a geographic position that benefits us because we are close to the Panama Canal, but also we have access to the United States. The Jones Act, y lo que son las leyes de cabotaje, the imposition of cost of using the U.S. maritime to move products from Puerto Rico to the United States, to the United States to Puerto Rico, would not apply on the independence. And the policies of, for example, the Financial Management Oversight Board will not apply to Puerto Rico because we will not have that kind of imposition unilaterally imposed by Congress. So it is far superior. It is a democratic option, but it is also the right of a people. I want to say something shortly. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. That is a legal condition. That is not an identity. It is not its ethnicity. It is not a nationality. We are Puerto Ricans. We are a people. And for that reason, we deserve the right to self-determination and independence, as the UN have said and the Decolonization Committee has said.
I want to remind everybody that we're opening up to questions. I'm going to ask one more, and then your guys' hand raise, so you're next. When you ask a question, feel free to say your name, where you're from, how you found it, whatever. But yeah, say your name, please. The one thing, and this is maybe a personal indulgence, but I hear about the rise in nationalism all the time. And when we think about nationalism, I think about West or Eastern Europe, wars, civil wars, divisions. The Puerto Rican identity is an identity, but the United States is a place where everybody can come and be themselves and have this shared identity as Americans, but also be able to explore their own features. Why should we prioritize an idea of identity or necessarily keeping and preserving that over perhaps some of the immediate needs of poor people in the island today?
Well, first of all, because we have seen recently the idea that the United States is kind of a salad, that each piece of the plate conserves its own identity. I don't think that Trump's policy agrees. And I say this because the issue of nationality in the case of Puerto Rico is not comparable with the nationalities or nationalism that was expressed not only by Trump, but as you said, Eastern Europe. The idea of nationality in Puerto Rico is that we had to resist the idea that they wanted us to disappear. One of the first things that the United States did after the invasion was impose English as the only language in schools. That was fought, that was resisted, and the struggle for identity in Puerto Rico has been a struggle for identity and a struggle for a people to exist. And that's why it's important for Puerto Ricans to put into context that we deserve to be a people, and we deserve as a people the right to exercise our sovereignty and to decide our future and our destiny. And that's why in the case of Puerto Rico, the subject of national identity is very important. But I'll go further. In Puerto Rico, in the electoral context, not only independentistas, but those who believe in statehood from the DMP and those who believe in the current colonial status from the PDP have to make their campaigns look like if it were an independentista campaign, with the use of the Puerto Rican flag, with the use of songs that are very patriotic. I mean, that's the context of Puerto Rican identity, struggle, and nationalism. It's not comparable, of course, with our experience of a negative nationalism, which is excluding other people. Puerto Rico is a country that opened its doors to other nationalities, and those of us that are struggling right now with migration policies against, for example, in Puerto Rico, the larger population of migrants is from the Dominican Republic, and they are arresting people. They don't ask if they have papers or they don't have papers. It's very selective, and I mean, it is a different manifestation of nationalism.